The forgotten recipe. The aroma of warm spices filled the air as Lily stepped into her grandmother's kitchen. It was a place of magic, where ordinary ingredients transformed into extraordinary meals. The wooden shelves were lined with jars of herbs and spices, each labeled in her grandmother's neat handwriting. A battered recipe book lay open on the counter, its pages worn and splattered with memories of meals past. "Grandma, why don't you ever use this recipe book anymore?" Lily asked, pointing to the faded pages. Her grandmother, a lively woman with twinkling eyes, smiled as she stirred a pot of soup. "Oh, my dear, those recipes have been in my head for years. But there's one recipe in there that even I haven't made in ages." Lily's curiosity sparked. "What recipe?" Her grandmother's smile faded slightly as she wiped her hands on her apron. "The recipe for the golden cake," she said. "It was your great-grandmother's most treasured creation. She called it magical because anyone who ate it said it brought back their happiest memories. But the recipe, it's been forgotten over time." Lily's eyes widened. "Forgotten? How can a recipe just be forgotten?" Her grandmother chuckled softly. "Life gets busy, my dear. Sometimes even the most cherished things slip away." A hidden clue. That night, as Lily lay in bed, the thought of the golden cake lingered in her mind. She couldn't let it go. What if the recipe wasn't entirely lost? The idea filled her with a sense of adventure. She decided to start her search the next day. The following morning, Lily climbed up to the attic, a space filled with the echoes of her family's past. Sunlight streamed through the dusty window, illuminating trunks, boxes, and piles of old books. She began rummaging through the contents, her fingers brushing against aged papers and photographs. After what felt like hours, Lily opened an ornate wooden box. Inside, she found letters tied with a ribbon, a faded photograph of her great-grandmother, and a small, folded piece of paper. Her heart raced as she unfolded it. The paper was fragile, but the writing was clear. The golden cake. Ingredients: a cup of kindness, a sprinkle of joy, a dash of courage. The rest of the recipe was missing, torn away at the bottom of the page. Lily rushed downstairs to show her grandmother. "Look, I found part of the recipe," she exclaimed. Her grandmother took the paper, her expression a mixture of surprise and delight. "Well, I haven't seen this in decades, but it's incomplete. Without the full recipe, we can't recreate the cake." Determined, Lily decided to dig deeper. She spent the next few days exploring the attic, the basement, and even the old shed in the garden. Along the way, she found more pieces of her family's history: a music box that still played a soft melody, a journal filled with stories from her grandmother's youth, and a box of postcards from places her great-grandmother had visited. Finally, in an old cookbook tucked away on a high shelf, Lily found another piece of the recipe. This one included instructions. bake with laughter, mix with love, serve with gratitude. The whimsical language made her smile, but it also made her wonder. Could the recipe really be magical? With the fragments of the recipe in hand, Lily and her grandmother began experimenting. They measured, mixed, and baked, trying to fill in the gaps with their imaginations. The kitchen became a whirlwind of activity, filled with laughter and the occasional mishap. Once, they accidentally added salt instead of sugar, resulting in a cake so terrible that even the birds outside wouldn't touch it. Despite the setbacks, Lily felt closer to her grandmother than ever. Each attempt brought them one step closer to uncovering the mystery of the golden cake. And with each failed attempt they learned something new. One evening, as they sat in the kitchen surrounded by bowls and spoons, Lily's grandmother reached for a tin box she hadn't opened in years. Inside were old family letters. "Your great-grandmother wrote to her sister often," she explained. "Perhaps one of these letters holds the key." Lily carefully sifted through the letters, reading each one aloud. Most were filled with news of everyday life, but one letter stood out. It described a garden party where the golden cake had been served. "It was the best cake I've ever made," her great-grandmother had written. "The secret is in the golden syrup. And the final touch, which must come from the heart." "Golden syrup," Lily repeated, looking at her grandmother. Her grandmother's face lit up. "Of course. Your great-grandmother always kept a jar of homemade syrup. I haven't thought about it in years. We'll have to make our own." With renewed excitement, Lily and her grandmother set out to make the golden syrup. They boiled sugar and water, adding a hint of lemon and a dash of vanilla. The sweet, amber liquid filled the house with an aroma so rich it felt like a promise. They folded the syrup into the batter, reciting the whimsical lines of the recipe as they worked. Finally, the cake was ready for the oven. As it baked, the scent of spices and sweetness filled the air, wrapping the kitchen in warmth. When the timer dinged, Lily held her breath as her grandmother carefully lifted the cake from the oven. It was golden and radiant, as if lit from within. They let it cool, then cut a slice. As Lily took her first bite, a wave of warmth and happiness washed over her. She felt as though she were sitting in her great-grandmother's garden, surrounded by laughter and love. Her grandmother's eyes glistened with tears. "It tastes just as I remember," she said softly. "You've brought a piece of our family's history back to life, Lily." News of the golden cake spread quickly. Friends and neighbors began visiting, eager to taste the legendary creation. Each bite seemed to evoke memories of cherished moments, filling the room with laughter and stories. Lily and her grandmother decided to write down the recipe, this time ensuring it wouldn't be forgotten. They included all the ingredients, even the whimsical ones. Kindness, joy, courage, laughter, love, and gratitude. Together they created a new recipe book, filled not just with dishes but with the stories behind them. One afternoon, as Lily sat with the recipe book on her lap, she added a note at the bottom of the golden cakes page. This cake is more than a dessert. It's a reminder of the magic in every moment shared with loved ones. Years later, Lily's own children would gather in the same kitchen, flipping through the recipe book and marveling at the stories their mother told. The golden cake became a tradition, a way to honor the past and create new memories. And every time it was baked, the house would fill with the same warmth and love that Lily had felt on that magical day. The recipe wasn't just remembered, it became timeless, a golden thread connecting generations with the sweetness of family, history, and heart.
Thank you for listening. Like, subscribe, and share our channel Magic Mingle with your friends to enjoy more magical stories.